Hey guys, this is Kyle at ProjectionHub, and today I'm going to talk about why is it important to keep your business plan simple. I don't want to say keep it simple, stupid, because that would come off offensive to you, but that's not what I mean. But I'm going to talk about how and why is it important. So in some cases, and a lot of times I've written business plans and I've worked with clients, even back when I was an SBA lender, is oftentimes we'd have people come through who were thinking about their business in 3-5 years, whatever. They were thinking about the end goal, the multiple locations, the dream of whatever. And that's great. And as a founder or an entrepreneur and having that vision, that's so important. And you should have that roadmap, I think, in your head or even on paper somewhere for you to reference what your goals are and what makes sense. And it can be really enticing when it comes to the business plan process to get all that down and make sure, everyone, lender understands your goal and all of that. But our advice would be to really resist that urge and to keep it as simple as possible. So in this video, I'm going to show you some examples of what I mean by that and why it's important. And if at any point you have questions about, how this applies to your business plan and how you're approaching that, feel free to let us know. You can drop a comment down below. You can contact us at support@projectionhub.com. And yeah, we would be happy to help with that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. All right, here we go. So I've got a little bit of visual aid up. I've got an example business plan here. So this is a copy of a real business plan that I have done where I've anonymized some of the data, but I'm going to also hop over and show you some financial projection examples as well for the points I'm going to make. So yeah, why do we want to keep our business plan simple? And I want to make one quick clarification. When I say simple, I'm not necessarily implying short, or I'm not really implying lacking detail. So when I'm saying simple, I'm meaning we want to try and narrow in the vision. We want to keep the story nice and clean and easy to understand without trying to fully get the lender to understand everything you have in mind for the business. As an entrepreneur, you probably have the bug and the disease of you've got a lot of grand visions. There's a lot of shiny objects you want to start and you want to do that, and then you could do this and you can grow that. But that's not what's going to get the business started. We need to keep things simple, keep it clean and easy to get the lenders to take that first next step so that you can get on your way to making the business a reality. So a few reasons why keeping it simple and what does keeping it simple mean is it's easier to understand the scope of the project. So for example, just using this business plan here, I think probably one of the best examples I can make of how to keep a business plan simple is making the executive summary do a lot of heavy lifting. Okay. So the executive summary, in my opinion, should essentially be a quick highlight reel of all the important sections down below in the business plan. So that's a really easy way to keep it simple because you can just kind of quickly and succinctly outline everything right there in the executive summary. So if your business plan's getting too, confusing to really explain in an executive summary, then you might need to simplify some things. So talk about yourself. How do you know what you're doing? That's a way to keep things simple, is make sure your lender understands, hey, I know what I'm doing. I've got relevant experience. If you don't have relevant experience, what kind of skills do you have that are applicable? And does your partner have experience? Are you hiring key employees? Keep that nice and simple. Then outline what's the opportunity. What's the idea? In this case, it's a laundromat, right? So we're specifically mentioning, this is how many units we're going to have. This is where it's going to be located at. These are our objectives. Now you can see in this one right here, which I'm about to kind of encourage you not to do this. But in this case, this client was very eager to open up additional laundromats down the way. But a key component of this is that's not where they wanted to start. And that's also not where they needed to start in order to get the first laundromat to be successful. So if they could get the first laundromat online, get it operating to where they think it would be profitable, right? So even if their plans are to open up a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth location, locations 2 through 5 have no credence over whether the first one should be successful. So we don't want to invite or distract a lender, let's say, with your game plan beyond location number 1. All we need to focus on is getting approved for the financing for the first one. So we don't want to get in our own way. So, to throw the client a bone in this case, we mentioned in our goals in a 5-year vision, the goal is to expand beyond a single location, but we're not going to go into details beyond that. That's not important with what we're going to be doing right now. So that's probably the best example I can give for keeping it simple. Let's say your business or your game plan is to expand beyond 1 unit or 1 location. So maybe you're a truck driver, maybe you're opening a coffee shop, maybe you're opening a laundromat. So your goal is to create some sort of multi-unit empire beyond a first location. I would encourage you to resist the temptation to talk about the plans to expand the empire and focus on just getting the funding you need for the unit that's right in front of you. You don't need a lender focused on, do the numbers work for all the locations? Well, we need to make sure you're cash flowing in a certain position. So year 3, we can be looking at the second one. You don't need them thinking about the next loan or line of credit that's bigger than what you need. We just need them focused on that first location. And so it's easier to understand the scope of the project when you're just talking about one unit. So keeping it simple for everyone involved, you, for the lender, the underwriters, everyone. There's less questions back and forth between lenders or underwriting when you're starting to split hairs between, multi-unit type deals. Now, this is not going to apply to everyone. There's some people out there that are doing multi-unit deals all the time. They're trying to acquire multiple units or start multiple at the same time. I'm not saying you can't do that, but oftentimes people who are doing that have experience doing that. They're sophisticated operators and maybe they have a large budget. Maybe there's investors involved, but the average typical startup or business owner, we don't need that. Let's keep it simple and focused on the first thing. There's less worry from lenders. So, it's enough and hard enough to get a lender interested and willing to go for your first location or your first truck or your first thing to get your startup off the ground. We don't need them worrying about if we're thinking too big, right? So they might be worried that our plans for expansion are going to hurt. Maybe we're too worried about outgrowing or growing too quick. We don't need them to have that type of fear. So we're just going to focus on the first one. And then a big one is it's just going to simplify the projections in the business plan. If you could just focus on the first unit, that really keeps things nice and simple. Again, this is an example of this person wants to do multiple locations, but this business plan is just for one location. When it comes time to do location 2 or location 3 or location 4, then you can update a plan. You can update the projections to include those additional units. And honestly, after you can get past the first one, now you have a track record. Now you have historical actuals. Now you have some performance data that it isn't crazy to say, hey, lender, I'm back. Truck 1 worked great. Laundromat 1 worked great. I'm ready to line up the financing for the next 3. And if the numbers look good, they're probably going to be excited about doing that. But when there's no data, that's a good way to scare a lender and to make them a little bit too worried about that. So I don't want to make this a long video, but I'm going to jump over quickly to a set of financial projections to further my point here. So I've got 2 set of financial projections for a trucking business. And in this one, you can see I've got 1 truck lined out, right? I'm asking for a $50,000 SBA loan. I'm going to invest $30,000 of my own money and we're going to get an $80,000 truck. Great. Okay. So we're asking for all of that. We just need $50,000 to get started. We don't need to go through all these projections, but we've got it all created. The numbers work good. We're going to be profitable in the first year and we're well on our way. But we know our plan is to create a fleet of 10 trucks, right? So now I'm going to jump over to our other version of the projections and I'm going to show you what happens. So now we've got 10 trucks in here. Okay. Already starting to look like a lot more information, but our loan amount hasn't changed. We still just want $50,000. We're still only investing $30,000. And that's because we're still only starting with 1 truck. But now we've gotten here like, well, we plan to buy more in year 2, and then we're planning on buying more in year 5, which may be true. And again, I'm not discouraging you from doing this planning. This is just for you, for internal planning. If you're working with someone like us, we can plan for that. But what you're delivering to your lender or where you're applying, we don't want to overcomplicate things. Because then when we start looking into other components here, now we start to see some other things, right? Oh, well, revenue's jumping up to $2 million. And that seems like a pretty high, your operating expenses aren't growing as quick as they should. And it starts inviting these additional questions, our staffing, how are you going to manage to do that? Where are you going to get all your drivers? And it just starts to overcomplicate things. The numbers look bigger, which means there's going to be more questions. And we don't need lenders preoccupied with that. So my advice to you is keep it simple. Just request and plan around that first unit because you don't want to overwhelm your audience when it comes to do that and you don't want to distract them. So if you are going through this process, if you are trying to business plan, or you're trying to create projections, or you're trying to find an SBA financing, let us know if you have any questions. We offer a free business plan review where I will go through your business plan and I'll record a video like this, not for the internet, but for you specifically, giving you some feedback and some pointers on how I would adjust or change your business plan. We can also help with projections and doing some different things with that. So if you like this video, found it useful, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing to the channel. We would love to work with you and invite you into the ProjectionHub audience. So we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.